And he was actually my first call after I got laid off. He's like, sorry, I don't have anything, but I can introduce you to some people and have some conversations. Playing golf again one day with the owner of the insurance company, he said, you know what? We're growing and we've made a few acquisitions and we could actually use some help. So I'm now doing M&A, which is something I wanted to do for a long time.
Right.
I'm an equity partner looking for companies to acquire, which is fun.
Wow. So today we have an incredible story with Mark, who is right now Vice President of Corporate Development. Like he is incredible, is a big role. But Mark, first of all, thank you for being here. And I want you to take us back in time a little bit. I don't remember, 6 months or so, and tell us, where did we meet?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, first of all. So it was back in March, and I had just been laid off from a vice president role. I was a VP at a growing financial services company. It was kind of my playing out my existing career path. I got this opportunity, this VP role a few years before, and I thought I'd made it, and then it ended up with me on a call with the CEO and the head of HR at the end of February saying, thank you for your service, but we're shutting off your access today. So I think a lot of leapers kind of come to leap at that point, and where it's like, okay, I was excited. I was like, okay, the world is my oyster. I can go do whatever I want, but I'm looking at 10 different things, and I was looking at buying a business, buying into a franchise. I was looking at all kinds of different things. I didn't think I wanted to go back into the corporate world. Um, but so then you popped up into my Facebook feed, right? And so I attended a free webinar, and I didn't sign up right away, but you send your follow-up emails, and so I scheduled the interview, and so I had my interview with Sue, and sounded great. It sounded like you guys kind of figured something out in this world of leaping and kind of figuring out your next thing. But you get to the end of the call, and it's a large investment, right? And so I'd just been laid off, and so there's no income coming in. So you got to make a decision, and it's like, do you invest in yourself and you know try to keep progressing in your career, or do you save your money, try to do it yourself, and who knows how
Yeah.
long it would take or where you would end up. So I decided to make the investment.
Why did you decide to make the investment, Mark? Because this is where a lot of people get hung up. And the truth is, the first time I've ever done anything like this, I almost threw up in the middle of the night and wanted my money back. And then
Right.
it changed my life, right? But we're not used to it. So what made you eventually say, you know what? Let me just do this.
It was for the clarity for me because I
Mhm.
was looking at 10 different things, and um, wasn't sure exactly which way to go or what to do or how to do it. And so for me, the very first thing was just getting clear on what I even wanted to do,
Yeah.
you know?
Because there's just a lot on the menu right now. Like
Right.
there's so many possibilities right now. Which one is right for you and for the not just the paycheck, but the life that you want with it. So what did so you said yes. What did that clarity reveal for you?
Well, I mean, it's the first modules in foundation, the first one is your why, right? Like
Right.
you say, okay, if money's not an object, and you say be greedy, right? Don't hold back, like like whatever you want to say. You want a private jet, whatever it is, like just. And so it
Right.
kind of gets you to think outside of the box again, and like open up your, like, to dream again, right?
Right.
And think about all the possibilities. But then you go into your must-haves. It's like, okay, well, yeah, those things are all great, but like, do I want what am I willing to sacrifice?
Right.
Right. And so for me, it was finance and balance because I came from this corporate world where I was in meetings all day, every day, and like 6 to 10 meetings every day, back to back. And even though I worked from home, like many days I wouldn't even eat till 4 o'clock, or like it was difficult to go to the bathroom, even though I worked out of
Wow.
my house. You know,
Wow.
so I craved that balance and flexibility, and still didn't know what that meant or like how to do that. But those early modules I think are so important to getting that clarity, you know,
Because I think we never reflect back. Like, I think for me, one of the reasons, one of the things that I realize is that as momentum grows in your career, you're somehow never intentional, strategic about it. You just kind of go with the flow. You work hard, you prove yourself, but you forget to dream. Like, it's kind of what you said. Like, dreaming is not even a muscle that we're practicing in general.
right.
So to me, that was the first time I think I did something like this. I'm like, I don't even have dreams. Like, I'm just like, I don't know what I want. And like, I'm good. Like, I have a house, I have my kids. What else do I want? Like,
Right.
what else?
Yeah, you end up in this box that is your career, right? And it's like, okay, I do these things, I have these skills, and like I'm probably qualified for these three different titles,
Right.
right? And you kind of get stuck in that box, and you can maybe change companies, but you're still in that same box. And so, um, and then the next module is the zone of genius, right? And so that is great because it actually, I mean, the boxes in the assignment have you go all the way back to early childhood.
Right.
And like for me, it was like high school and then college. I don't know how much I really got out of middle school or before, but
Yeah.
but I went back to even college where um, I went to three different schools. I grew up in Ohio, went to Ohio State, and um, actually got in a bad car accident first weekend back after Christmas break. I was in intensive care for 7 days and took the
Wow.
rest of the year off. Went home the rest of that year and then decided to move to like completely start over, go somewhere I didn't know anyone. And I went to a small college in Rhode Island called Bryant. And and so I went from Ohio State was the largest university in the country at the time, 60,000 students, to this small college in Bryant, and literally all my classes were in the same building. So I was like, oh geez, I feel like I'm back in high school. And a lot of the people lived around there, and they'd leave on the weekend, and it was kind of dead. So I was like, okay, this isn't working either. What? And so then I looked at Boston, and I was like, well, there's this. Someone told me about Northeastern, and they have this. It's called a co-op program where you're in class for 6 months, and then you have an internship for 6 months. So it adds
Mhm.
a, and you do two of those 6 month
Right.
full-time internships. So it adds a year. So it's a 5 year program, but you come out of it with a full year of experience. So I moved to Boston, and so in doing this exercise, I kind of realized that I'd been leaping. If you call those leaps, I'd kind of been leaping for my whole life, at least since
Right.
college. And then even at I went to Northeastern in Boston. I did two study abroads. I did one back to back. I did one in Cambridge,
Yeah.
England for 6 weeks, and then I went to Paris right after that.
So
Uh,
you adapt, like you're the person that will just land on their feet too, right? Yeah, it's
and
interesting.
I and it going back to the dreaming, like I wanted to see the world and experience different cultures and new places, and I that
Right.
ambition that I feel like we kind of maybe lose in
Yeah.
corporate life. And then I got back from Paris, and I had one more internship to do, and so I went down to New York City and worked at Payne Weber at the time. They're not around anymore, but um,
Amazing.
just kind of kept doing, and those were all, I did that all on my own. My parents had nothing to do with it.
Amazing.
These were all my decisions. I did the research. I found these places, found the study abroads, and
And how
um,
did looking back help you with some of your clarity? And some of the things that we say is that success leaves clues, right? And you're just looking for those clues to see what will actually get that excitement back again. What helped you through that journey?
yeah, part of that was confidence. Kind of remembering oh yeah,
That's huge.
I signed up for a study abroad and went across the pond all by myself. I didn't have a friend that I went with. I just did the research, went to the meeting, and then the next thing I knew, I was in England. And then in between those, Cambridge and Paris, I had 2 weeks by myself or 2 weeks off. For the first week, I got on a tour in Ireland and went around the southern coast of Ireland, where
Nice.
they like drop you off at a different hostel every night,
So cool.
and again, just by myself, I had a
Right.
backpack and so kind of remembering that, I remembered I can do those things,
Right.
I can be
Right.
ambitious and
Right.
um
And again, the beautiful thing with somebody like you, Mark, I mean, you already reached what everybody else will look at, success, definitely, right? But I think for the driven people, we know if we're still a fraction of what we can be. We know if we haven't quite reached the full potential and it eats us alive a little bit, right? We're like, there's more to me, there's more in the tank. And I know I wanna, this is the most important decade of my life. Like I wanna go all in. Like I wanna do some incredible things, but also create an incredible life with it. Um, so when you went through that, first of all, it gave you that confidence. How did that help you decide a little bit what would be the next thing? Like, how did you decide a little bit? Or what did
so
it give? Yeah.
well I knew pretty strongly that I did not want to go back to where I was in that corporate, meetings all day, um, that like no balance, didn't have any
Right.
balance, right? I was almost like protesting the W-2
Right.
machine and the whole interview process, I mean, yeah, I interviewed. Spent some days on LinkedIn and applied for some jobs and I even had a few introductions to high level people at certain jobs and they just didn't go anywhere. So that was kind of the nail in the coffin for me. I was like, all right, this isn't
Right.
working. I need to do something else. And so um, I started playing golf with a group of very successful people. Um, and I was playing golf with a guy one day, telling him my story, and he said, "Well, you can work for me." And so he's a part owner of a pharmaceutical sales company, and he said, "I mean, there's no salary, 100% commission, but you can. There's people making a lot of money." And this is like different industry, different. I was in operations,
Right.
in financial services. So this is like nothing I've ever done before.
Right.
But and then you have another one of your modules is the experiment, right? So this is right around the same time
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Right.
going through this experiment module, and that was key because it kind of gave me permission
To say
to
yes and
to
see.
say yes and to try it. Because one of the things you said is like this doesn't have to be a long-term commitment, right?
Right.
It can just be a short-term trial or experiment and
Right.
just get you to the next thing. And that's exactly what happened is it's not I am still doing it by the way, but it bought time for me. It
Yeah.
bought me time to be able to find the thing that I ultimately wanted to do, which is now my corporate development role.
So tell us more about that because you had this mega win. Tell us more.
Yeah, so I'd become friendly with someone here that in my local town. Um, he he previously was in the property casualty business, and he acquires insurance agencies, rolls them up into a larger company, and then his last company he sold off for 25 million or so. And so now he's doing it again in the Medicare insurance space. And he had just started a new company probably 6 months before. And he was actually my first call after I got laid off back in March. My first call, I reached out to him and I told him the story. I was like, hey, got laid off. I was like, is there anything I can do for you? Anything at your company? And he was like, oh man, unfortunately, he had just hired a COO, and they didn't really have money to pay salary or anything. He's like, sorry, I don't have anything, but I can introduce you to some people and have some conversations. And he did, and I had a few conversations, but they didn't really go anywhere. But it was his friend that is a partner at the pharmaceutical company that ended up giving me the pharmaceutical sales role. So I was doing the pharmaceutical sales for a few months, and then playing golf again one day with the owner of the insurance company. He said, you know what, we're growing and we've made a few acquisitions and we could actually use some help. And um, and so both of these came on the golf course. I'm not sure what lesson that gives people, but uh, so I was like, okay, and so we started talking, and um, it's not a huge salary, but there's commissions on any deals I bring in, and he also gave me the opportunity to invest in the company and become an equity partner, which I ultimately did. So
Wow.
so I'm now doing M&A, which is something I wanted to do for a long time.
Right.
I'm an equity partner. It's a small company, which I like, knowing going back in my career history, I've learned that I like the small company atmosphere. I have an office, a 7 minute commute from my house, and
Wow.
I'm looking for companies to acquire, which is fun.
Amazing. I mean, I want to tap into and make sure that people understand that. First of all, the golf, I mean, it's kind of what we say. Everything is going to happen in the hidden market. It's not going to happen in the job boards. Like I know we waste countless hours looking at these job boards, but writing this cover letters or whatever, that's not where it's going to come from. It's going to come from these conversations and kind of being top of mind as the person that they want to introduce. And by
Right.
being there, surrounded with these people, you became that top of mind. It doesn't matter if it's golf or something else, but you've been that top of mind.
And yeah, and these guys, they play every Friday. And, there's probably three of them that are regular, and then they'll rotate the fourth. And so I started playing with them. And so I don't have a job though, right? And they're playing at nice courses, and then they would have lunch after sometimes. So it'd be like $150. So if we go to lunch after, which with no job, and so my wife was kind of like, is this, really what you should be doing? But I was like, yes, I need to be in the room with these guys. I
Mm.
just need to be, because they're all of them are
Sure.
are successful. And I knew that I needed to be in the environment they were
Yeah.
in. And
And what
yeah,
you just said is so critical because I think people, many times, if they're not doing well, they actually take a step back. What you did, which is brilliant, is you eventually become the average of the five people you hang out with. So you hung up with the right five to actually be in the room, in the opportunities, get the opportunities that you like. That's incredible because again, that's eventually what pushes you to higher places anyway. So that instinct was a really good investment for you, right? But tell me more. So you eventually, I remember a conversation where you kind of said, you know what, I am excited about M&A. I don't know when it came about, but I remember a little bit of that conversation, and it was just around the quarter when you actually landed that. Like it was just kind of a really interesting thing. Do you remember that?
Well, I'm not sure if this is what you're referring to, but I actually invested in an M&A course that I had. This is before I got the job offer, the M&A job, because I knew I wanted to do that,
Yeah.
M&A, or even buying businesses on my own.
Hmm.
Um, and so I was, same thing like with Leap. I have this guy in my feed that keeps coming in my feed, and I think about it, but I never pulled the trigger. And then finally, I just said, you know what, I'm going to do it. Um, and that too, that was like $2,000 for this course, and I'm, still not making nearly what I
Right.
used to make, and but it's an investment. And then literally that weekend, or that it was like 2 days later, I
Yeah.
bought the course, and then 2 days later I was playing golf and got the M&A job off.
Amazing.
And it was it was amazing. There's something to that, you know?
I think there's something to that like focus that you're just saying out loud what you want. You're starting to take action, and you're somehow bringing that into your the possibilities. And um, people will call it different names from law of attraction to fate, but whatever it is, it causes you to take deliberate action towards something specific that you want. So getting that clarity and starting to take that action actually brings it into your realm of scope. Um, so now you're doing some incredible, and again, it taking you back to the clarity piece, when you kind of look back in time, think about it, you got the confidence of, whatever I can do, I can actually make it happen because I did some pretty cool stuff, as a, when I grew up. It also gave you that clarity about the small company that, I'm going to really flourish in that kind of an environment. So that started kind of creating a little even more clarity. The balance, like I don't want to be stuck in corporate. Like it's amazing how like little by little you started getting that clarity that you needed, and suddenly you funneled into this like, okay, so let's go corporate M&A. Let's do some really cool stuff. Am I reading this right, Mark?
Yeah, and I still have the balance, even though I'm actually still doing the pharmaceutical sales role too. And my, when I got the offer for the M&A job, he said, well, he actually, he's the one that introduced me to the pharmaceutical guy. So he said, he's like, and by the way, you can still do that. I don't have any problem with that. But in the M&A role, I have the flexibility to kind of go in the office when I want, leave when I want. And so now I'm picking up my kids from school, I'm taking them to practice, I'm going to
Amazing.
all their events, which I never did before, when because I was just too busy in the corporate world, and so I'm really enjoying that.
How incredible is that? That's amazing, Mark. And I think the one thing that then I would say is one of, and that's the big thing that we always talk about in Leap is even once you land, you want to now land in a different way, right? You want to prove yourself. You want to do a great job. You want to, because again, and we'll talk about how you always show up, but you also want to be very deliberate about now I don't want to wait 3 years and feel stuck again. I want to keep being very intentional about what's possible. What else? Like, I want to prove myself. What else can I do on the side? How do I create the life that I want? Where do I travel? Where, like, you just continue being very deliberate about it. Um, but the one thing that I will say, Mark, and I think people will listen to this and, hear it very well you showed up 1,000%. Again, there is no magic wand. There is no get rich quick. There is no, easy button that somebody can click and do. But you showed up, you did the work. You were willing to be coachable, and sometimes, and I'll say it was a lot of love here. Sometimes us as executives, like when I was a VP, I was not coachable because I thought I knew it all, and I thought, oh, this is bullshit. Right? So there's like some element that you need to suddenly like a little bit, empty your cup and saying, you know what, I'm here and I will do what it takes. And I will listen even if I'm not sure I'm a believer yet. So, and I think that's such an important element because sometimes we come with at least perceived notion that we know what we need, but that's kind of what so you always showed up as 1,000%, and that's the leader that you are. Like that's why, everybody wants to push people your way and make introductions because that's how you show up in life. And I want people to also hear how you show up is a mirror. The way you show
Mm,
up in here is exactly the way you show up in other places in your life. Like that, just inevitable. But the
yep.
way you showed up is 1,000%, and that's how you do everything that you do in your life.
Yeah. How you do one thing is how you do all things.
It's absolutely true. Um, so let's kind of finalize this. If I am somebody, I am a potential client, I lost my job, I am talking to this team and I'm freaking out. I don't know if I need this. Maybe I want to do this on my own. Maybe I this, maybe. What would you say to them?
Well, I would say definitely do it for one thing. The clarity for me was huge, and the confidence, and just there is the how also. I mean, it's not just clarity and confidence, but you also have a lot of the how, and you have branding and what to do on LinkedIn and all the trainings. I mean, you really have put together a great product, great
Yeah.
offering trainings, and it keeps going. It's not like you log on and you go through all the training and that's it. I mean, you keep putting things out all the time, which is
Yeah.
great. Um, I mean, it was a scary investment for sure, but I mean, it's worked out for me. It's still working out. I joined the Millionaires Club. I want to keep going. Um, Sounds like you might even have something else coming out that sounds interesting.
Exactly. Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, I'm all in. I am a lifelong learner, so I am all for personal development and investing in yourself and constantly improving. And this has been definitely been a great investment for me.
That's awesome, Mark. And I can't wait to see how far you go and what else you create. But thank you for being here and inspiring everybody and just being your awesome self because it's just been such an incredible journey to see you soar. And I just know that you're just in the beginning. So I'm excited about what's coming.
Thank you. I guess just one more thing I would say to people is don't be afraid of the experiment, you
Yeah,
know, and don't be afraid to try something completely different that you've never even done before.
I agree. I agree because that's how we learn, yes or no, but we at least learn. Oh, so it's so powerful.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mark. You are the best.
Thank you, and I will see you next month in San Diego.
Woo!